All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into something maybe not as glamorous as being a brain surgeon, but a role that's honestly way more important than people give it credit for. The data entry supervisor.
Yeah, you know they say data is king, right?
It's true, it's like the lifeblood of, well, pretty much everything these days. And someone's got to make sure that data is, clean, organized, actually makes sense.
Right. It's not just about having data, but having good data. And that's where the data entry supervisor comes in. They're the guardians of the spreadsheet, the masters of making sure those ones and zeros are where they're supposed to be.
And we've got a ton of info from RoleCatcher to help us unpack this whole thing, their career guides, their interview tips, all of it. And one of the things I found really interesting and maybe even a little surprising is just how much this role goes beyond just typing fast.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a misconception that it's just a simple, low-skill job.
Yeah.
But honestly, nothing could be further from the truth. Think about it. Data entry supervisors are managing teams, they're troubleshooting errors, they're even involved in things like data security protocols, which is huge these days.
It's a lot more responsibility than you'd think at first glance. So let's kind of map out this whole career path, so people can get a sense of where they could go. RoleCatcher lays out four distinct stages, and I think it's helpful to see them laid out like this. So you start as a data entry clerk, then move up to data entry operator, then data entry coordinator, and finally, you reach the top, the data entry supervisor.
It's a good roadmap. It shows that there's a real path for growth in this field. You don't just magically become a supervisor. You earn that position by, gaining experience, expanding your skills.
Yeah. And to make this all a bit more tangible, I love that RoleCatcher creates these hypothetical profiles for each stage, painting a picture of what your day-to-day might look like. So at the entry level, you've got the data entry clerk. They're all about being proficient in different computer systems, having a proven track record of, accurate data entry, which obviously is key, and thriving in a fast-paced environment.
Right from the get-go, you can see that attention to detail, being accurate. Those are like non-negotiables. They're the foundation that everything else builds on.
Totally. Okay, so you level up, become a data entry operator. Now, RoleCatcher's example profile is highlighting stuff like managing and organizing actual data entry tasks, training and supervising other clerks, so you're already stepping into a leadership role, and even developing procedures for the team to follow.
Exactly. You're not just doing the work anymore. You're starting to guide how the work gets done.
And the plot thickens. You keep climbing that ladder, reach data entry coordinator. This is where, things get real. RoleCatcher's example, they're talking about coordinating and prioritizing entire projects, making sure everyone's on board with those, scary data protection regulations, and even working directly with the IT department to make those data entry systems, humming like a well-oiled machine.
It's interesting when you see the shift. It's less about the data itself, more about understanding how it flows, the rules around it, how to make everything smoother.
Totally. It's like you've gone from playing one instrument to conducting the whole orchestra. And then, drum roll, please, you reach the peak. The data entry supervisor.
The big leagues. And RoleCatcher's example profile, it definitely reflects that. We're talking managing an entire team, developing performance metrics, conducting evaluations. Basically, you're responsible for making sure this whole data management operation is actually, effective, efficient, all that good stuff.
Yeah, they even mentioned collaborating with other supervisors, making sure things are aligned across different departments. So you're not just siloed in your little data world, you're part of a bigger picture. And I think that's something that honestly, people don't realize about this kind of work. It's not just you in a spreadsheet. It's understanding how data impacts the whole organization.
Absolutely. And it's only becoming more important as our reliance on data just keeps growing.
It's wild to think about all the data flying around these days, and someone's got to wrangle it all, make sure it actually means something.
It's like the Wild West out there, but instead of tumbleweeds, it's spreadsheets. And yeah, the data entry supervisor, they're the sheriff, keeping things in line.
Love that analogy. So what does it take to be the sheriff of spreadsheets? RoleCatcher gets into the nitty-gritty of those essential skills. And yeah, obviously, you got to be able to type, actually type.
Can't be hunting and pecking your way through a mountain of data. Speed and accuracy, those are the bare minimum. But it's funny, right? People get so caught up in the typing, they forget about everything else this role demands.
Right. It's not just about how fast you can move your fingers. What are some of those maybe less obvious skills that RoleCatcher highlighted? They mentioned critical thinking, problem solving, even negotiation and persuasion. Those feel like pretty high level for data entry.
See, that's the thing. People underestimate data entry. Like, it's just mindless inputting. But the best data entry supervisors, they're detectives, they're diplomats, they're straight-up problem solvers.
Okay, got to hear more about this. Detectives and diplomats. Give me the lowdown.
All right, imagine this. You're the data entry supervisor, right?
Yeah.
You spot a discrepancy in the data. Could be a simple typo, or could be something way more complicated, like two different departments using different systems, and now the numbers are all out of whack. You got to figure out what went wrong, how to fix it, and sometimes you got to convince people to actually get on board with the solution. That's where the whole negotiation diplomacy thing comes in.
So you're not just fixing data, you're like navigating office politics, building consensus.
100%. And that's not even getting into the tech side of things. Because remember, we're living in the age of automation. Data entry, the landscape is changing faster than ever.
So are robots going to steal all the data entry supervisor jobs? Should we be worried?
Hold your horses, it's not that dire. But it's true, automation is changing the game. Those repetitive tasks, the stuff that used to take up a ton of time, that's getting taken over by software.
Which honestly sounds like a good thing, less time on tedious stuff.
Exactly. But here's the catch. The role of the supervisor, it's evolving too. They're not just managing people anymore. They're managing the intersection of people and technology. They got to be comfortable with these new tools, understand how to leverage them effectively, and maybe even more importantly, make sure their team is on board with all the changes.
So it's like this weird balancing act. You need that human touch, those soft skills we were talking about, but you also got to be tech savvy, adaptable, ready to learn new systems on the fly.
And don't forget data security. That's a whole other beast that falls under the data entry supervisor's purview, making sure all those protocols are being followed, the data is actually protected. It's a lot.
It's a lot of responsibility. I mean, we're talking about sensitive information here, people's personal data, financial records. The stakes are high.
Absolutely. And that's why those data security protocols are so crucial. Think of them like the rules of the road for handling sensitive information. Encryption, access controls, regular security audits. It's the supervisor's job to make sure all those things are in place and actually working.
So you're not just making sure the data is accurate, you're making sure it's safe. It's like you said before, the stakes are high, you gotta be on top of your game.
And you got to be constantly learning because the tech, the security threats, they're always changing. But okay, let's be real for a minute. It's not all sunshine and roses. There are downsides to this career path, just like any other.
Okay, yeah, let's get real.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges someone might face as a data entry supervisor?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned tedious tasks, pressure, what else? Spill the tea?
Well, let's be honest. Data entry, it's not exactly known for being like the most exciting field.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not exactly saving lives or, designing the next iPhone.
Not exactly glamorous, yeah. Exactly. RoleCatcher, they're pretty upfront about this. They talk about how the work can be repetitive, especially at the entry level. Think about things like data cleaning, for example. You're basically scrubbing data, making sure it's all consistent and accurate. And that can get old pretty fast for some people.
Yeah, you're not going to find yourself, jumping out of airplanes or anything. It's definitely more of a, heads down, focused kind of gig.
And because accuracy is so important, there can be a lot of pressure to meet those deadlines, especially when you're the supervisor. The buck stops with you. You've got a team counting on you, a whole company relying on you to make sure the data is right. That can definitely lead to some stressful situations, especially if you're dealing with tight deadlines and, maybe not enough coffee.
So it's not for everyone, that's for sure. You got to be able to handle the pressure, the detail-oriented work, all of that.
Right. It's not just about the hard skills. It's about personality, work style, all of that. But let's say you're listening to this and you're like, bring it on. I can handle the spreadsheets. You're ready to polish up that CV, prep for those interview questions.
Yeah.
Well, that's where RoleCatcher really shines. They have this insane database of, get this, over 120,000 interview questions.
120,000? That's like more interview questions than I've had hot dinners.
Right. It's nuts.
Okay.
But the best part is they're not just random questions. They're tailored to specific roles, specific skills. So you're prepping for the right stuff.
Okay, so give me an example. What kind of curveballs might RoleCatcher prep you for? Like if I'm going into an interview for a data entry supervisor position, what should I be ready for?
So they might hit you with something like, how do you ensure data accuracy within your team? Getting into your leadership style, your quality control processes. Or they might ask something like, describe a time you had to make a tough decision related to data entry. They want to see how you think on your feet, how you handle pressure, all that good stuff.
Okay, so it's not just about knowing the software, it's about knowing how to, like, navigate the human side of things too.
It's all connected. And the coolest part is RoleCatcher takes it a step further with their AI-powered tools. They can actually help you craft those killer responses, even simulate mock interviews, and give you personalized feedback. It's like having a career coach in your pocket.
That's amazing. I mean, talk about leveraging technology to, like, level up your career game.
Right. They even have this feature that analyzes your CV or resume, gives it a score based on how well it matches the job description. It's like having an AI recruiter give you real-time feedback.
That's super helpful. It's like having a secret weapon for the job hunt.
Hmm?
But, one thing RoleCatcher emphasizes a lot is the importance of transferable skills, and I think that's something people might not immediately think about with a role like this.
Totally. But think about it, as a data entry supervisor, you're developing some seriously valuable skills.
Hmm.
Attention to detail, project management, problem solving under pressure, communication, even those diplomacy skills we talked about. These are all things employers in any industry are looking for.
So even if you don't see yourself as a data entry supervisor forever, the skills you build in this role can be a springboard to all sorts of different paths.
Exactly. It's all about how you frame those experiences, how you highlight those transferable skills. And that's something RoleCatcher can really help you with.
Awesome. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from, the basics of data entry all the way to AI-powered career coaching. It's been a wild ride.
It's been fun. And hopefully it's given our listeners a new appreciation for this often overlooked role.
Absolutely. So to our listeners out there, next time you hear data entry supervisor, don't just picture someone hunched over a keyboard. Remember the skills, the responsibility, the potential this role holds. And who knows, maybe it's the perfect fit for you. Until next time, keep exploring and keep on learning.